Hello, everybody. Once again, I am Lehman Crafton, aka Zorvalachan, Less Than Guru, and today in Torg Eternity reviews, we are doing. Ian Mars immediately jumps up in my lap and says hello. We are doing Cyberpapacy, Torg Eternity version of it. So to go through, kind of like I've been doing with all the other ones, but in different orders, just whichever ones appear in my mind first. We have the nice Cyberpapacy source book with the Pope John Malraux the First, and it has a few Cyber Priest, Cyber Knights, a host over here. So that is cool. We have the Mega Adventure, the 7 acts within the Cyberpapacy, in unhallowed data or data, however you wish to choose to pronounce that last word there. This is one actually that I have a group that is going through currently in my own home game, and like I talked about with the God Box and with the Fires of Ra, that things that I've changed within them, especially with the God Box and Fires of Ra, I just decided Acts 1 and 2 actually fit really nicely together, and it kind of had closure, and then later on the rest of the acts probably would flow together. So I've only gone through the first two, saving the other ones for another time. But I've made adjustments now in unhallowed data, I haven't had to do too much adjusting, even though my world is different. There is a mixed zone here between Isle and Cyberpapacy, which is kind of cool that they brought that in. But that kind of existed in Old Torg, and my campaign is kind of a mix of Old Torg stuff with New Torg's Torg Eternity things. So I have that section in there, and I also agreed with the Cyberpapacy taking over Brazil and parts of South America, so that part fit in really well. And I have not had to change much, if at all, for this adventure so far. Then I wanted to point out again that all the in the main wave, there is the Delphi missions for the specific reality. So this is Cyberpapacy, lots of one-act adventures to drop in at any time or between acts of a mega adventure if you just want to mix things up. Or you just have a session that you want to do for like 3 to 4 hours with a pickup group. You can easily do those. And then we have the nice Game Master screen that I've pretty much showed for all the reality. So this is the Cyberpapacy one. And here, instead of having it on this side and on this side, they kind of put it in the middle and the end for the world laws and axioms. So speaking of world laws and axioms, let's go ahead and talk about those. So magic of 14, which is a pretty nice solid magic number. I always felt in the old Torg, magic might have been a little bit low for Cyberpapacy, but here that 14 is pretty good. You can have some pretty potent effects with magic in the Cyberpapacy as a cyber. They're called cyber witches, or that have cybernetic implants and stuff, or the white witches who do not, who kind of shun technology. So I really agree with the 14 being the axiom. Social is 18. So instead of like old Torg where Isle and Cyberpapacy were at that same level, Isle, as I talked about yesterday, was 16. The straight medieval type social aspect. Here it's 18, so it's a little bit higher. But it's one of those things where it's a church hierarchy, a theocracy. So a lot of things get bogged down. The Tech 26 that I'm going to mention right now, Tech 26, which is the highest invading realm of the Possibility Wars. They have the absolute highest tech. And even though they have surveillance cameras and people are suspicious and rat out their neighbors and all that type of stuff, the social being 18, there's a lot of bureaucracy and church red tape that you have to go through. So it's not like as soon as a camera picks out some Storm Knights doing their thing, that immediately church police are rushing there. That information has to go through the proper channels. How fast it goes through those channels is up to the game master, the speed of plot. So, but it does allow it the realm for a resistance to actually work, to make sense, to be able to work. And then the Spirit of 16. So Spirit of 16 is very good. Also, I'm glad that they kind of brought up Spirit from what the old Cyberpapacy was, the 16. I believe, and I already put my Isle books back there, but I think it's the same, or really close to Isle, so that makes sense to me. A theocracy type reality that has a high spirit is a lot better than the old, in my opinion, than the old Torg that had a 14 and supposed theocracy. So to me, the axiom changes and adjustments really fit my concept of what original Torg should have been, what those should have been around. Other people can disagree, and feel free to disagree, but that's my mentality. A few things about the setting as a whole, about the whole false papacy of old Torg is gone. There are sections that might not like technology, but that's more of a what their philosophies are, not that there was some type of false papacy before the cyber papacy. And here, the cyber papacy has been going on for a few centuries. I could be completely making this up, but I want to say it was about 250 years that they've had cybernetics and things like that. So it's not a new tech. It's not a new how it was and just came down right then and there. At the beginning of the possibility wars of original Torg, it is something that they've had for a long time. They're experienced with it. So that part's changed. A lot of people say Cyberpapacy is one of the biggest changes, and I want to say it's the minute details that are changed. Like, when I think about Cyberpapacy of old Torg, and I think about Cyberpapacy of Torg Eternity, personally, it all seems similar. It all seems around the same. Like, my first reaction is not, oh, they've completely changed something, like, oh wow, they made Edenos and Baraka badass. I don't have that. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a cyber papacy. Oh, that little thing there has changed. Oh, that little thing, oh, it's not new, it's 250 years old. Oh, okay, they're doing hard light constructs and not everything's not just cybernetics. So there's hard holograms in drones that you get things like that host that I'll show you again. So you get a hard light construct like that angelic host type thing. You get holographic emitters that can have a drone appear around them, that can be a scout drone or an assault drone or a shielding type protective drone. So there's little minutia that are different, but in my opinion, the whole overall concept of sins of the flesh, the cyber pope offering the cyber church as saviors, they let the cyber witches have a little bit of their fun so that they can summon demons because of a law of magic that summons demons, and then they can say, hey, look, magic is bad, that's why you need us as your saviors, and things like that. So there's that whole thing. They do have an interesting thing with the darkness device. Darkness device is a black cross known as Ebenos Crux. However you want to pronounce that Latinish phrase, whether you want to use classical Latin, or I would think it'd be more like church Latin, and I'm not scholared in church Latin. All my Latin was ancient classical Latin. So basically it translates as Black Cross, so that's what it is. It has kind of a personality that is very different than other darkness devices. It's a troll. There is the whole Godnet, and that's pretty much very, very similar as with the original Torg, but it actively takes on personas and even itself within the Godnet and trolls people, which I find absolutely hilarious. And Unhallowed Data, it uses that a lot, and it's fun to troll my players as the darkness device. It also is a very almost like opposite of lore and background, because it descends from the void, the nameless one, the darkness devices, which is destruction. It has a creative type mentality. It created the godnet. It goes around and tries new things, so it's almost kind of like a black sheep of the darkness devices, where it does its own thing. It doesn't act like a normal darkness device. So that's kind of interesting. But like I said, it's all those minutia that kind of change the cyberpapacy. So it's not exactly in the details like the old cyberpapacy, but the feel to me is very, very similar. There is a resistance. Like I said, they're able to exist because of the lower social axiom. So the church itself isn't able to streamline things. There's lots of bureaucracies that happen. They have streamlined things like entering the godnet. There's still the temp trods so that anybody can go into the godnet like old Torg, but there's not the schematics that you kind of go through. It's more theater of the mind, if you want to do it that way. How they present the godnet. I've changed things myself in my own game to even make that different. Instead of always having to use temp trods, I have like basically like Star Trek hologram deck, the holodeck comes up and people can interact in the godnet that way is something that I threw in so that a whole group can get into the godnet and you don't have that net runner problem from other games where everybody's doing something and the net runner feels like they can't do anything, or the net runner is doing their run in the net and everybody else is just sitting around twiddling their thumbs. Again, a lot of times I could see that is put it with outside interference coming in while the net runner is doing his thing. Grid runner, or they call them nodders, from the land of Nod, and the cyberpapacy in Torg Eternity have stuff attacking, trying to get that nodder out of the godnet, try to kill him or whatever, physically as well as within, and then the allies Storm Knights have to fight off that, and you can have things happening at the same time because you're flipping your drama decks. Or if it's not so important but they still have to go there, then just do a quick, figure out a difficulty number, do a quick computer check to do the whole thing, and don't bog it down. So basically, if it's going to be dramatic, make it dramatic for everybody. Get everybody into the godnet, or have that situation where the nodder is in the godnet trying to do their thing, and everybody else is trying to keep the church forces away until the nodder comes back, and then they can book it or fight or whatever they decide to do. So that's something to think about. Really, besides the taking away the whole, cyberpapacy is new, and the cyberpope and Uthorian having an alliance before the invasion, that's cut off, like I explained in Isle. They completely took that away. They make the cyberpope also, he's still the defensive one, but he isn't the completely crazy defensive one where he never expanded. Really, in original Torg, I think there might have been a few places, maybe down in Italy, he went down. But really, in old Torg, his territory was the same place from day one to the end of the war. Just a few minor changes happened. Here, he went to South America, so they show that he has these ideas. He can do stuff, and that does make Torg Eternity like they wanted, a more desperate game. Not necessarily a darker game, but a more desperate game. So you have, if you look at everything, you have a more competent Ka. We'll ignore my opinion of Uthorian. But then you have the Nile Empire, which still stays strong because it was doing good in Old Torg and it's doing good in Torg Eternity. You have a smarter Cyberpope who understands his tech more and isn't afraid to expand in other places and stuff. So that all kind of wraps up in to what the cyberpapacy is. Really, I'm not sure what else to talk about. Like I said, overall, for me, the theme is pretty much the same. They added little things like the hard light constructs, making it a 250 or whatever year old cyberpapacy instead of new. So it's just the details. So if you know the concept from old Torg, you bring that in, and then you read the source book, and you figure out what the minutia changes were. I guess I'll go ahead and talk about the world laws, because I talked about the axioms and then I completely forgot to talk about the world laws. So on this table, or on this GM screen, they actually wrote all three. So normally beforehand they were only writing the two that had mechanical things, but here they actually wrote all three. So we have the one true way, which is any non-cyberpapacy spell that is cast, doesn't matter what the axiom is a contradiction. So if you have a priest of the living land deity Lanala casting a healing spell, which is perfectly under the axiom of the cyberpapacy reality, because they are a priest of Lanala, they have a chance of disconnecting on 1 or 4 if for some reason they're using something to get a better thing that's above their 24, which I don't see happening. But they still can disconnect, and normally you wouldn't be able to disconnect. So that's the law of the one true God. You have to worship the cyberpapacy deity. Otherwise, anything that you worship, if you're doing a miracle, then you have a chance to disconnect. And that goes to why witches are magic and not spiritual deity paganistic type thing, because in their original cosm they were all disconnecting, and if you're Ord you can't reconnect, so you disconnect and you are now under that, and you would not be able to cast those spells. You can't do contradictions. So boom, there you go, you add that in, and the shift of paganism worship becomes paganism magic. If you watch my Core Earth Delphi Council, to me, that's a really interesting way to do it. It's kind of like I was saying, most, if not all, real world cultures, religions, that's what spells were. Spells weren't just like Gandalf knowing magic and casting it. It was beseeching deities to do this magic for you type thing. So they kind of did a reverse of that, where that's how they were, but then they couldn't anymore, so they had to go magic. They had to go magic spells and kind of try to keep those religious aspects with their thinking. So that's perfectly cool in my opinion. And then you have the law of heretical magic, which is if you fail to cast a spell, your backlash is increased. So backlash is damage you do to yourself by failing a spell. So when you fail magic, because magic is bad, they want it there to show it as bad, and so that they can point and say, look, 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 there's a cyber witch. She's summoning demons. She's, doing this, or he's doing this. It doesn't. Witch can mean male or female. They're doing this. They're doing that. We are here to save you from that. So that is a way. Boom! Look, they're harming themselves. It's a bad thing. And then the law of suspicion, which is perks and most of the Cosm cards, bring that aspect out. So we're right at 20 minutes, and I pretty much think I've summoned up everything I wanted to talk about. Tomorrow will be a little bit different. I will do Tharcold, but I don't have the Tharcold books yet. They are being transported on the cargo ship. As far as I know, currently, people in Europe have it. People in the United States do not have it yet. So, but the people who backed the crowdfunding have access, and have had access for quite a few months, of the PDFs. So I might go back and have my background of the Tharcold, the 3 Tharcold books, the source book, the Mega Adventure, and the Delphi Council books, kind of put those around me, because I won't have actual physical books to show. But I do want to do it because it has been out, and I do know that pretty intimately because I was very involved in that wave of products. So again, I am Lehman Crafton, aka Zorval Chan Less Than Guru. If you like, you can dislike, subscribe, leave messages in the comments, and until tomorrow, I will catch you later.